5 minutes past 10, our talkback lawyer David Whiting is here to help you with free legal advice. 1300 222 774, 1300 222 774 if you would like some free legal advice from our talkback lawyer David Whiting. Good morning to you, David.
Good morning, John.
Bit of legal scuttlebutt around, fair bit circulating. I had the pleasure yesterday evening of being invited to be the MC at the opening by Her Excellency the Governor of Victoria, former Family Court Judge Linda Dessau, of the new premises for Monash Oakley Legal Service, now called Monash Law Clinics.
Wasn't it Monash Springvale, or is there
There's two?
Okay.
There's two. Yep. There's one at Springvale and there's one at Monash. And the one at Monash in Beddoe Avenue next to the campus has just got a new building, and they've had a big crank up of the number of students that will provide free legal advice owing to the growing demand and the students' willingness to provide that advice. So a big commitment by that university, my old university, and it was kind of fun to go and see how it's all grown.
I think the concept is fantastic. I mean, one of the universities teach you the law, but it's nice to also teach you how to give advice and interact with people. Because
to turn the theoretical in the classroom into the practical in the day-to-day world. So that's what it's all about. And they've got this thing now, which I didn't know about, called the Guarantee. Monash was the first law school in Australia to provide a clinical program where students work in the legal centre.
Yep.
It's taken decades for most of the other law schools to catch up, and it's now almost part of every law course. Most law schools have got one. But now Monash is saying, if you come to our law school, we guarantee you a place in this program, either at Springvale or at Monash or at Caulfield, where they've got a campus, or we're going to open one up in the city. And they're going to offer free commercial and similar, like intellectual property advice for artists and so on. They're going to use the commercial side of the law school to do that in the city.
Well, I mean, we know, John, that most law graduates, in fact, a great number of law graduates, find it difficult to get a job in the law. Yep. So I would have thought this would do nothing but enhance their prospects. Yeah,
it was interesting. Yeah. Lots of stories emerging about chaos in the family court. I see one of the newspapers has got a story about morale, but also about the delays. 2 years now to get a trial on in the family court.
Yeah, there was a series of articles. There was a criticism by a family court judge saying, why are you taking so long to appoint replacements? So there's an issue about the number of judges. Then there's an issue.
So when people retire, they're not being replaced?
Well, they're being replaced, but, the longer you take to replace them, the less the court system costs you. So it's it's the delay process in a point, and every time there is no judge sitting, then there are no cases being heard for what would otherwise be that list. Then there are they've made some administrative changes in relation to the conduct of appeals. The judge who was running the appeal system for quite some period of time and reduced the time that appeals were taking to process announced his resignation. He finishes in September.
And very cross he is about what he regards as the downgrading of the system.
Yes.
And some of the new judges appointed to be in charge have never been family lawyers. So they don't come from that culture. In fact, I think it looks like they're being appointed to try and blow up that culture.
Well, one of George Brandis's last acts was to, in fact, create a review of the Family Law Act. And one of the ideas being floated was the appointment of social workers to determine parenting plans and the like. And so, I can't say whether that's good or bad, but it's different and therefore, from a lawyer's perspective, slightly scary.
What's the difference between a social worker and a Rottweiler?
No.
The Rottweiler will eventually let go of the kid.
Okay, thank you, John.
You never heard that one before?
Aren't you glad the board's full already? But the text messages will come.
Have you never heard that one?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I just do the lawyer jokes, Why do they use lawyers for laboratory experiments?
Yeah, because there are some things rats just won't do.
Yes. A couple of weeks ago, we had a caller from Jason of Grovedale who had a dispute with a lawyer, and his dispute was that the lawyer hadn't dotted his I's or crossed his T's and had failed to lodge some documentation. Yep. And I told him about the complaint process at the Legal Services Commission and also Legal Services Board, and also talked about going to VCAT. And I have a persistent email sender who pointed out to me that there is that he's unlikely to succeed because of the concept of advocates' immunity here. And that's the situation where if the person who's standing up for you does something wrong, they can't be sued.
Yes.
And it didn't apply in Jason's case because it was the solicitor who was filing the paperwork, not doing the appearance, that he had the complaint against. But what I did get was a copy of an interesting judgment. And it was a judgment at VCAT where there had been a complaint made against the lawyer, the barrister. The barrister had then said, well, I'm now out of pocket as a result of coming to VCAT. I'm out 3 or 4 days fees. I would like to make a claim for compensation.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
All right. And over the amount of time that was involved, the claim was $14,000.
Whoa.
And unsuccessful. And unsuccessful.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I just, I'm reading it. I'm thinking, I'm not liking where this is going.
No, exactly.
At the end of the day, the judge said, and it was a judicial member at VCAT, said, look, the particular client did it all on his own, had no idea about his prospects of success or failure, and had been advised to go to VCAT, and no, I'm not going to make a compensation claim.
Okay.
All right, so that's something.
All right. Anything else?
No, that's about it, John.
All right,
sorry, interest on the Morris Blackburn. Morris Blackburn have run a very large class action relating to the bushfires.
They have.
But at the moment they're sitting on $3.5 million or so because that's interest earned on the settlement money while they process the claims.
And there's a tax argument, isn't
there? There's
an
argument that some of it's that some or all of it is liable to tax, and so there's a discussion ongoing with the Commissioner as to the liability.
Yep. All right.
That's it.
Since I mentioned the Monash University Law School event where I was invited to be the MC last night, I'm glad that our instructions every week for years and years and years are having some effect, because I'm now asked by an anonymous texter to make any declarations that are relevant to spruiking Monash University.
You did, John.
Well, the declarations are as follows. Yes, that's where I studied law, and that's where I drove to, leaving home at 4 o'clock, getting home by 8:30 to do an unpaid gig in front of however many people, entirely in my own time, at an 18-hour day, just because they asked me and I thought it was something I believed in. So, yeah, those are my declarations, if you're interested. I can't quite understand what people were expecting. If you're thinking, was I paid for it? No, I wasn't. In fact, it probably cost me considerably, both domestically and in every other way. And all approved in advance by the ABC according to the guidelines. But I love the way that people are automatically leaping to conclusions. So there we are.
Well, yeah, if you were telling us about tomorrow nights, I could understand the need for the declaration.
Tomorrow night?
Right, I don't know what you've got on, but I'm saying it's not
There's
your
not even
spruiking an
hockey
event that you're
not
going
even
to.
hockey tomorrow
Hasn't
night.
it started yet, John?
No, after Easter.
Okay.
And I would never impose even more boring hockey talk on the legal talkback.
I've been to your hockey ground, John, and they seem to pack the goals away.
Yeah, they've just put a new one down at Essendon. Anyway, there you go.
Okay.
Not my club. Chris in Camberwell, morning to you. Chris, you're through to David.
Yeah, good morning, John. Good morning, David. In light of the Trinity scandal, and it's good to see the Australian cricketers putting that off the front page of this, but I was just wondering about the legality of schools having hair length codes in both the private and the public sector. And let me just tell you a quick story. My nephew was prevented from or banned from going to his graduation and awards ceremony because he had facial hair. Now, I'd have thought, and John, you'd agree with me here, that growing facial hair was a pretty natural thing to do.
Oh, only for very virile people, Chris.
My nephew's quite virile.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Chris, there are schools are entitled to impose uniform and dress standards, and I think that extends to facial hair, length of hair, braids, all sorts of things. However, there have been a number of cases that have been run at VCAT in the last couple of years about whether some of the restrictions are reasonable or unreasonable. Now, I can think of schools where we're talking about whether or not it's appropriate to wear a turban if you're a Sikh, whether you can wear, whether there are Muslim clothing restrictions for religious reasons, and whether you can or can't impose them. So,
but
your starting proposition is
if you sign up to go to a school,
and one of the
accept
requirements
the rules
is
of the school. If
yes.
you don't like them, you can go somewhere else, or you can make your views known within the school community. But you can't just choose not to be bound by the rules.
No, you can't. So that's the problem,
John, I agree
Chris.
with that for private schools, but what about public schools?
In any school, in any environment, a degree of discipline is important. And there are government schools that have uniform codes and similar. And I can't see that there's a logical reason for simply saying, I mean, which ones would you throw out, Chris? All of them? Or just the hair one? Got some others?
The hair one I find interesting because, with the uniform, at least it only applies during your school time.
Yes.
For your hair length, did you like to have long hair because...
Oh, I dream of long hair.
Yes. Or short hair because you do sport and that's, how you find it most comfortable?
Chris, I don't have a problem. I don't think that the hair length is in unreasonable control that you might put on a school. And if that's the condition of enrolment, you always have the ability to not enrol there.
Good on you, Chris. Personally, I just can't get enough of what's going on at one of our elite private schools with its internal squabbles between different groups of incredibly agitated parents and old boys and all the rest of it. I think it's fascinating insight. Laurie in Burton's Lookout. Morning, Laurie.
Yes, good morning, David and John. I've got a case which I hope you'll be able to give us some advice on. I was married to my partner 5 weeks ago tomorrow in the registry office here in Melbourne.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. And now the Immigration Department want to send him out of the country and return him, send him out anyway.
Well, what visa did he come in on?
Well, he came here 9.5 years ago on a student visa, which was then renewed or extended to further his studies, and then he claimed on a protection visa due to his sexuality and religion.
Yes.
And the two obviously clash. Then the Immigration Department about 2.5, 3 years ago had called him to a meeting, but they neither notified him nor his immigration agent about the meeting.
Well, they has to notify him about the meeting, otherwise he couldn't have gone.
No, well, he didn't go.
Okay.
Because he wasn't notified.
Yep.
So the case ended up in the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. Just a couple of weeks after we'd booked our wedding, he got a notification from his immigration lawyer that he'd been called to a hearing. The hearing was originally booked 2 days after our wedding, but then they moved it to the following week. Anyway, his appeal there has been rejected.
And this is at the Migration Review Tribunal, is it?
Migration and Refugee Division of the AAT.
Which is the old Immigration Review Tribunal.
Yep. And so his immigration lawyer that looked after that case is advising him to leave the country and then apply for a partner visa from outside of Australia.
Yes.
And we've also been to a migration agent in the city, and his advice is to do not leave the country, but to apply for a partner visa here.
Yes.
And we're wondering whether they're just trying to make money out of us, or what the best advice is.
Well, I don't know the grounds of the rejection just 4 weeks ago. And that will depend upon the relevant factors are the conditions on your partner's bridging visa. And one of them might be that you can't make an application for a visa while you're here. And the second one is you would need to know what the grounds for rejection were. And I don't... sorry?
Basically saying that we could both go and live in India. Now, there is a fair age difference between the two of us. I'll be 65 in a couple of months. Laurie,
I don't really want to pry. I think if you would want... have the discussion out. Why not get some written advice from one of them and take it to the other one? And say, well, why is this one? Why have you got different opinions? Why are they? What's the view? What are my prospects of getting a spouse visa?
Yeah.
Right.
And the other concern mainly is that because he'd been given 28 days to leave the country as of the middle of this month.
Yes.
So 28 days will be running out towards the middle of April.
And what you don't want is him to be picked up and taken to the airport, because then there will be an exclusion period applied.
That's right, and he's in detention until he's deported, and then he's not allowed to come back for, a couple of years usually?
A couple of years, but I mean, I've had people I've recommended go to the airport and say, "Hi, I'm here, I'm getting on the plane."
Yeah.
Yes.
Rather than being arrested, which is awful. Laurie, does that help you?
Whether you go and see another lawyer or you actually try and get some chapter and verse justification for the view that both of them are taking and making an assessment based on that. All right?
Is there any way of checking up on the qualifications and the success of lawyers? Is there some way of doing that?
Word of mouth's the best recommendations you can ever get, Laurie.
Okay.
And what you might do is look at lawyers who do the migration appeal work, and you might get an opinion from them, or go and see a migration agent with a fairly low migration agent registration number, because the first two digits indicate how long they've been registered for.
That's a good trick.
You all right?
That's a very good trick. Good luck with that, Laurie. Good luck indeed. Vicky in Lower Plenty, good morning to you.
Oh, good morning, John and David. My question is what to do. My sister died at Peter Mac 3 days after signing her will.
Yes.
And the probate court has queried that, and they have asked for the doctors to attest as to her capacity. And
yes.
What's your interest in the situation, Vicky? Are you a beneficiary or an executor?
I'm an executor.
Okay.
Yeah. And I seem to have hit a brick wall now. I don't know what else to do.
So you've lodged a probate application.
Yes.
A requisition has been issued from the probate office that says, essentially, having regard to the link, the time between the date of death and the date of the will, we want to be satisfied that your sister had testamentary capacity at the time.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and the doctors won't, or it's because it's the practice at the hospital not to?
Well, because it's the practice at the hospital.
Okay.
Yes.
And who were the witnesses that you used? Not their names.
There were two of her friends who were there.
Okay. And do they have qualifications that would be of assistance?
One is a counsellor. I'm not sure whether...
So why would you not... Why would you not do this? Why would you not ask the hospital for a letter that says, we do not permit our medical staff to provide statements as to capacity?
Yeah,
right?
Okay.
Right, and that says, ain't ever going to come, is what you're telling the probate office.
Yeah.
And what the probate office wants to know is that the will fairly represents her intentions and that she knew what she was doing.
Yes.
So at that stage, I'd be looking for affidavits from the witnesses. Mm-hmm. And the questions that you look at to determine testamentary capacity are, I suppose, it's alertness. Do they have a general idea of the people who might expect or might normally recover a benefit from the estate, and some idea of the estate? So how much do I have? What are the claims on my benefaction, and how do I plan to give it out?
Uh-huh.
All right. Now, the next thing that you might look at is how were the instructions given?
Oh, good.
Right. Now, and that's so you might look at an affidavit from the lawyer that says, I went to visit Mary in hospital.
There was no lawyer, and I've already had to get an affidavit saying that I've searched for prior wills because she didn't revoke any prior wills.
Yes.
And I've already had to get an affidavit.
Who drew the will?
Vicky?
Who made the will?
Who wrote the will down?
She did.
What, she made up her own form of will?
Yes.
Did she have a document to copy the wording?
No.
Did she use a will kit? Did she?
No. She made it all herself, and she didn't even have the clause at the bottom, that said.
And it's a handwritten will.
No, it's a typed will. She did it on her computer.
So it's like a letter almost, is it?
Yeah.
Saying here are my expressions.
This is the last will and testimony, blah blah. But she didn't have a revoke or previous wills.
Yeah, that's not crucial. Yep.
The clause that says, I attest that.
This is my last will and testament.
I'm here, and these people
are as well. But you can get over that with affidavits from them.
Are there any parties disputing the document as her last will, Vicky?
Only the probate court.
Yep, that's what I'm asking. Are there any other interested parties or potential beneficiaries who are wanting to have that document set aside?
Not that I have heard of.
Are there any people who might think they're getting something and aren't?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
All
So
right.
you're just having to leap through whatever hurdles they put in your path systematically.
That's right, yes. Yeah.
Right. Then I would also then prepare an additional affidavit that explained what the family structure was.
Oh, okay.
You know, she's got no children, she's got 3 brothers and 2
whatever.
sisters and one died. And
That there's no disputation, that it's all very straightforward and you're not serving anybody's interests here or protecting or securing anybody's interests
Yes.
here that are at
Right,
risk.
so it's affidavits of due execution from the witnesses, but take them a little bit further. Talk about whether she discussed what her will was going to say, that kind of stuff.
Is there a lot of money involved, Vicky?
Oh, well, according to me there is, and to be
Relatively
fair, I am
speaking,
half
perhaps.
of
Yep.
1/3 of the beneficiary.
Are we talking hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Yes.
Okay, well, it's probably worth
spending.
spending 1,000 or 2,000 to get a lawyer to help you get it through, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
It's probably worth spending $1,000 or $2,000 on a specialist wills lawyer to help you get this paperwork processed, rather than
Okay.
trying to do it yourselves, because you've ended up in a spot of bother because you didn't spend money on a couple of $100 for a lawyer to come bedside to the hospital to draft a
Well, we
will
didn't
that
know
would
she
have
was
gone
gonna
through
die.
without problems. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Good luck, Vicky.
Thank you.
And it is possible to get people who'll go and attend in nursing homes, hospitals and the like, David. There's plenty of people around who are prepared to offer a mobile will service these days.
There are, and you can, from time... Yeah, the answer is yes, but sometimes it takes 2 visits.
Yeah, but
visit
then
to take instructions and a visit to sign.
Yeah, we once had a student, when 40 years ago I taught at the legal service, we had a student who famously, in fact, Bill Seisland, if you're listening, good morning to you, he had a elderly infirm woman who didn't speak English, who came in on a walking frame with great difficulty to the legal service to give instructions for a will. And Bill very proudly came back to see me as the supervisor and said, look, this woman, I've learned all the multidisciplinary issues here. She's had great mobility problems coming in. She's really struggling. So I've taken all her instructions for the will, and then I got her to sign the form so she doesn't have to come back a second time. It's blank and we can fill it in when we've got the wording right.
Wow, okay.
So Simon and I looked at each other, we burst out laughing, and I said, well, I'll take the cash if you want the house.
Yes.
And then the penny dropped for the student that you can't get someone to sign a blank will form.
No.
It's not really very ethical at all, because you could put anything you wanted to in the will.
Just not the done thing.
No.
No.
So Bill won a trophy for that, for the
did.
biggest muck-up of
For the most ambitious lawyer.
Don't know what he's doing now.
Yeah.
I'm sure parole will come eventually. Greg and Baldwin, morning to you, Greg. Hello, Greg, you're on air.
Hello.
Greg.
I called about a fortnight ago. How are you, David
Very
and John?
well, thank you, Greg.
Good. So I called 2 weeks ago about being on work cover and me sustaining the injury through.
You
work
had an
and
issue in relation to light duties.
That's correct.
Okay.
So,
If they can't give you light duties, you can't return to work, is the essential answer.
Okay, so, I'm actually doing light duties right now. So me going back to my full duties and the regular work that I, used to do, my doctor, and I'm fearful that my personal GP may actually say they advise against it. What would my options be then if I feel that my employer is responsible?
Responsible for what?
The injury.
Well, your employer accepts responsibility under the legislation, whether it's your employer's fault or not your fault. If you think you should be entitled to lump sum compensation rather than the weekly payments during the rehabilitation because you've got a long-term permanent injury, then you want to talk to a firm that does workers' compensation work cover claims.
What if the IME believes that a portion of the injury is not work-related?
Well, you can. I'm not sure. There's a review process if you're not happy with the decision. But at the end of the day, someone is going to make a decision about whether you are or aren't well enough to do work and what the percentage disability is. And then in the event that you want to seek a lump sum, then someone needs to apportion blame.
All right, I hope that helps you, Greg. And Mary in Melton, good morning. You're through to David.
Good morning, John. Good morning, David. Several months ago, my mum passed away, and we've found some shares.
Yes. Probably Telstra or Commonwealth Bank, are they?
I've got no idea.
Okay, yep.
But they're still. My dad passed away 15 years prior, and
Yes.
in the interim period, nobody has.
Transferred the shares to your mum's name.
Yep.
Yep. Happens all the time.
Yep.
How big is the estate, Mary?
There's a house involved.
Then you're going to need a grant of probate because the house is involved. Yes.
Yes,
the
that's
share
been
registries. The share registries deal with these all the time. And precisely what you do depends upon whether you are going to sell the shares or keep them in the family and transfer them to beneficiaries.
They're going to be sold.
Okay, well then it's a very simple, straightforward process. You basically provide the share broker that you're going to sell them through with the 2 death certificates and a copy of the probate.
Oh, thank you very much
All
for
right.
that, David.
Pleasure.
Yep.
Thank you,
Thank
Mary.
you.
And sadly, that's all there's time for today, David. We've run through a huge variety of issues, but it does show the value over and over again of being able to do, can I call it triage with someone before committing to possibly thousands of dollars worth of
John.
legal costs?
Yep.
And most, free legal centres, most law firms offer you, 10, 15 minutes to tell you whether you do or don't actually need to spend any money or see someone. So,
Which is what you need. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
if you don't need to buy it, don't buy it.
no,
Thank you,
exactly.
John. See you next week.
Thank you, indeed. David Whiting, our talkback lawyer. In fact, no, you won't see me next week. After Easter, it'll be Ali Moore who will be here next week while I grab the few days after the
This
Easter
is the
weekend.
well-earned break, is it, John?
Yes, and I'll just take those 4 days off and turn it into, I think it's 10 days from Good Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I get 10 days for 4 days.
So you'll be a bit slow on the Tuesday after, is what you're saying? Thank you, John.
But rested. Our talkback lawyer, David Whiting.